Hi everyone, for today's video I'm going to be talking about my liquid blushes from NARS, and I think it's just a good way of brightening up a cloudy day like it is today. And also the main reason why I want to talk about this is because I have been wanting to have these liquid blushes from NARS for quite some time, but it's very difficult to have them here because they go out of stock extremely fast. So these are not new, but they are relatively new to me and into my collection. Now, I have been very vocal before in my past videos that I love liquid products, so like, liquid blushes, liquid eyeshadows, cream blushes, and eyeshadows, things like that, because it reminds me of how I used to do painting classes back in school. So it's quite a natural process for me now. These liquid blushes from NARS comes in 4 colors, by the way, and I only have 2 with me. I have the color Dolce Vita, of course Orgasm, and there is also one color called Luster, which is a nice, I think, peachy golden kind of a color, and there's also one called Torre, which is a warm coral. So I don't have those two because it's not available here at the moment. So we will just be playing with these two today. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you guys how I would use this, because maybe you've had some questions in your mind, like how do you layer it in product, how does it look like on natural skin without foundation on. So that's what I'm going to do today. So what I'm planning to do is that I'm first going to apply these 2 colors on my skin without product at all, just skincare, so that you can see how nice it looks on the skin. And then later on I'm going to add some foundation and layer on some concealer and powder, things like that, so that you can see how easy it is to actually bring color into your face using the liquid blushes from NARS. So before we get into application, let's talk about the packaging first. So the liquid blushes come in a frosted bottle like this, and it has a black cap on top of it, which I think it's plastic, but it's made of very hard plastic. Now, I do have to tell you guys, don't do the same mistake as I did when I first got this product. I actually unscrewed the top because I thought that this came in a dropper, but it doesn't come in a dropper, but it actually comes with a pump. So all you have to do is just to remove the cap and put it back once you are through. So yes, this has a pump, and it's just made of a plastic pump, and you just have to be very careful. You have to keep this secure, and when you are storing the blush, actually do not store it on its side. Make sure that it's always on top, because when I got this Orgasm blush from the delivery, it was lying down and there was a little bit of spillage at the base of the pump, so just take that into consideration. Now, the consistency of the liquid blush is actually very runny because after all, it's a liquid blush. So just keep that in mind. And when you actually use one full pump of the product, it actually disperses quite a lot of product. So just be very careful with that. Just be very light-handed with the pump if you just want to use the product sparingly. And if you want to go full on, then feel free to pump out some more. But you don't really need to use a lot of this product, because as you guys can see here on my arm, you can really see how pigmented this liquid blush is. So let's try to blend it out together. It has quite a very creamy feel to it. It also feels very smooth, and it's very easy to blend out actually. I love the color of this. Look at that. It's so beautiful, right? It's a very nice pinky peachy color to it. So as you can see, because of the opacity of this blush, you just use very thin layers and you build to the intensity that you want. So this is how the liquid blush in Orgasm looks like. And right beside that, I'm going to pump a little bit of the other blush that we have here, and it's the color Dolce Vita, and I'm just going to spread it, and you guys can see that this is a very nice dusty rose color. It's actually very nice. This will work well with like medium to deep skin tones. This is a very nice hint of red to it. Now, in terms of the dry down of these 2 formulas, it doesn't really dry down to a matte finish, which is actually great, because there are some times that if you use like those very mattifying blushes or those gel blushes, you lose the life of the color on the skin, because you actually lose the personality of it when it dries down into a very matte finish. And I can also see that it has a little bit of micro glitters, so that really adds some dimension into the skin. Now, in my observation, because this liquid blush doesn't dry down into a matte formula, the nice creaminess of it just leaves a very nice sheen on the skin, and it just acts as a nice highlight, and it just, you know, makes your skin look flushed and healthy because it is not dry at all. And also it doesn't dry down extremely fast, so it really gives you a lot of playtime to blend this and to apply it and to build the intensity that you want without, you know, rushing with your makeup application. Because sometimes when you're working with products that have, you know, fast dry down capabilities, sometimes you don't tend to blend out the edges well, and sometimes one blush on one side of the cheek is more intense than the other, because sometimes, you know, there we have a tendency of actually like applying like all of the colors in one go on the face, and then you start blending in one side of the cheek before you blend out into the other. So at least if you are someone who does that kind of like liquid or cream blush application, this liquid blush from NARS actually gives you a lot of playtime before it actually sets on the skin. Alright, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply the color Orgasm on this side of my face, and I'm going to apply the color Dolce Vita on this side of my face without foundation at all, so that we can see how well these two colors really apply a nice flush of color into the skin. Now, one other thing, before you apply the blush onto the skin, make sure that you shake the bottle really well, because the pigments actually separate from the vehicle that is used to apply the pigments on the skin. Okay, so I applied one pump of the color Orgasm here on my palette, and I'm just going to use my fingers right now, and let's just tap that on the skin, and as you guys can see, it's actually quite pigmented, right? So I'm just going to remove whatever is left of the product here on my hand, and I'm just going to use my fingers to tap it into my skin. Now, I was actually very surprised when I swatched this color Orgasm for the first time, because it has a very nice flush of color to it. It has a very nice, you know, pop of color, nice pigmentation, and it applies extremely well on the skin. Because there was one time when I bought the Air Matte blush from NARS, and I bought the color Orgasm, and when I applied it on my skin, I didn't like it at all. So I was like, because of that experience, I said to myself, I don't think I'm going to be buying another Orgasm blush, because I just didn't like how it looked on my skin and how it applied. But because I got the Orgasm blush as a gifted purchase, I was actually quite surprised, and I'm actually quite happy on how nice this color and this pigment actually looks on my skin. Alright, so this is how the color Orgasm in liquid blush form looks on my skin. So it gives my skin a very nice flush. It adds a very nice warmth, and it's not too overpowering and overbearing. So it's a very nice relaxed color. So if you're someone who wants to have a blush color like this, where it's not too much but it's just right, this color should be good for you. But if you have fairer skin tones than I do, then this might be more vibrant in your skin. So just take note of that. See, and this is how much product is left on the palette with just one full pump of the product. Okay, so let's try the color Dolce Vita, and I was gonna pick up a teeny tiny bit because this will be very pigmented on my skin, as you guys can see. Look at that. It's a very nice vibrant color. Let me remove some of the product from my finger, and I'm just going to tap everything in and blend it out. Now, the thing with liquid blushes or gel blushes is that when you are actually using your finger to apply it on your skin, you actually see some patchiness that goes on, and that just happens when the product starts to dry down, but you just keep on using your finger to tap it in. So your finger actually lifts some of the product from your cheeks, and that although in theory that sounds like, oh my god, so it's giving me patchiness, but it actually just helps to blend out the color well on your cheeks. And if you see any patchiness that has happened, like I do, I can see a little bit, you can just always go back to your palette, get some of the blush product, and layer on, and try to blend it into the areas where there have where there is some patchiness that goes on. Now this always happens when I use cream or liquid blushes, and usually adding a second layer of color will really help in removing the appearance of patchiness on the skin. Alright, so this is how the color Dolce Vita looks on my skin. It's a very nice, moody, rosy color. It's quite a deep color, and it works well with my skin tone, and it just really helps elevate the color of my skin. It just makes it really pop out. So as you guys can see, the Orgasm blush here really gives a nice natural flush to my skin, while the Dolce Vita actually gives my skin a nice pop of color. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to remove the blushes, and then I'm going to move forward and apply some foundation, concealer, and then before I powder everything, I'm going to come back and then let's apply the blush on top of foundation. Alright, so I have put down a very thin layer of foundation, and I've added some concealer already. But although in the normal way that I would apply makeup, I would always apply concealer after I have actually applied some liquid or cream blush. But I'm actually changing the system as we do this video, because I just want you guys to see that the face is already complete. Now, I'm not going to powder first because I now want to apply the blushes on my face. So on this side again, I'm going to be applying the Orgasm liquid blush, and I'm going to be using my Yachiyo brush for this. So I'm just going to load the product here on the brush, blend it generously here on my palette, and I'm just going to tap the product here on my cheeks. Now, I actually prefer to apply blush on my face at this part of my cheeks, because if I apply it any lower, it's going to make me look like a clown, because my cheeks here are very, very full, and it's also very round. So when I smile, a very white strip will actually form because of the concealer, and I find that applying the blush here at the highest points of my cheeks just makes my cheekbones appear more prominent, and it doesn't make me look like a clown. So I do really love applying cream and liquid blushes with a Yachiyo brush. I just find this brush to be the perfect brush in applying products like these, because it's round and it's fluffy, so it's actually able to deliver the product and diffuse it out at the same time. Alright, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the brush that I used for the foundation, and then I'm just going to blend out the edges so that we have a nice diffused application of color on the cheeks. Okay, I'm just going to use the brush again that I used for the concealer, and I'm just going to continue to blend out and try to remove any edges. Okay, next what I'm going to do is I'm just going to set everything now with powder, but I'm just going to set this side of my face first. By the way, I do apologize if I'm not able to cover this with concealer or foundation, mainly because it's a very fresh scratch, because I scratched myself in my sleep last night, and I don't want to put any makeup product on that scratch because I don't want it to get infected. Okay, so I'm just going to set my under eye area now with some translucent powder so we don't have any creasing of the concealer. Alright, now, and if you find that when you have set your face with powder and you find that you've lost some of the intensity of the blush, you can always go back with the brush that you used earlier, and you can just stipple a little bit of the product of what is left in the brush. Mainly because, as I've said earlier, the formula of this blush doesn't really dry down, which is really great because it really helps you to build up to the intensity that you want even after you have powdered your face down already. And I think this is one of the best features with this blush. So yeah, as you guys can see, I've just used whatever is left on the brush. And I'm also so happy to tell you guys that it doesn't really create any, it doesn't grab onto the powder, which is actually great, because one thing that I also failed to tell you guys earlier when I did the swatch is that when this fully dries down, it kind of like dries down into a nice powder formula, but it's not like a super duper matte kind of a powder, but it's just like, it's like an in-between formula, which is actually great. So if you have dry skin, and especially now that you guys in some parts of the world is nearing into the winter season, or is in the winter season already, this just really helps in, you know, adding some moisture and making your skin look that it's well hydrated. By the way, I do see a little bit of some gold micro glitters coming out on this blush, which is actually like a trademark of the Orgasm blush. Alright, so this is how the color Orgasm in the liquid blush looks on my skin with foundation and concealer and powder. Nice flush of color, right? Don't you think? Very pretty. Now, because this liquid blush is actually very easy to work with and it's very easy to layer with other products, I actually want to layer on this Orgasm color here from the NARS Orgasm on the Beach palette, because I find that this Orgasm blush in this formula actually has more pinky tones to it, and if I just want to add more pink into the Orgasm liquid blush, I can actually use that. And I'm actually using a natural bristle brush. This is a squirrel brush, and the main reason why I'm using this is because I actually do not want to pick up a ton of pigment from the blush, because I actually just want to add a nice hint of color onto the blush, and it's actually also a nice way of setting the liquid blush. So as you can see, the color is a little bit more intense now, but it's not overly so. It's just right. And one other thing, I also would like to add a little bit of some highlighter. So I'm just going to apply some of this. This is Champagne Strobe Light. Yeah, so this is Champagne Strobe Light from Hourglass, and I'm just applying a hint of that here on the highest points of my cheeks and here into my brow bone, just to add a little bit of some warmth onto my skin. Ooh, look at that. Very pretty. Nice dimension too. Alright, so now I'm going to apply the color Dolce Vita on this side of my face, but before I apply the blush, I would like to apply some liquid highlighter. So this is from Lisa Eldridge, and this is in the color Cosmic Rose. And I'm just going to apply a little bit of the product here on the highest points of my cheeks, and I'm just going to blend it down. And the reason why I'm adding liquid highlight at the moment is because I have noticed that the color Dolce Vita is actually a little bit more matte than the Orgasm blush. So this will just add a hint of dimension into the blush. Okay, so with a fresh Yachiyo brush, I'm just going to pick up a little bit of that blush, blend it well into the brush head, and apply it generously here on my cheeks. I think that's just way too much product. Let me get a clean brush, and I'm just going to use this to blend that out. This blush is actually very easy to work with. It's very easy to handle. And the great thing about this is that I actually use a matte foundation today, and it doesn't cling onto the formula of the foundation, which is actually great. So as I've said earlier, use very thin layers with this blush because a little goes a long way, especially for the color Dolce Vita, because this is a very pigmented color. Ah, the sun's coming out. It's a miracle. Alright, so I'm quite happy on how this has blended into my cheeks. Very easy, right? Okay, so let me get the brush that I used earlier for my foundation, and let's just again try to blend it well into the skin. And now let's just set everything with powder. Okay, so now I'm just going to set the concealer with some loose powder just to lock everything in place. Alright, and I am finding that I actually lost some of the dimension of the blush because I already added some powder. So I'm just going to go back into the brush that I used to pick up some of the pigment from the palette, and I'm just going to tap it in. Alright, so this is how the color Dolce Vita in liquid blush form from NARS looks on my skin. Alright, so this is my video for today. I hope that you guys enjoyed me showing you how I use the liquid blushes from NARS. And Truthfully, they are very versatile. They are very easy to work with, and they're very easy to layer, especially with, like, other blush products that you have in your collections, or like even highlighters and bronzers. It's very easy to layer them so that you can give the blushes a different kind of personality. And speaking of versatility, you can actually mix any of the liquid blushes from NARS. Like, you can mix the Orgasm and the Dolce Vita, or maybe the Luster and the Torrid, or Torrid and Dolce Vita, whatever, so that you can create a nice custom color that will work for you. And that's really great because it gives you a multitude of colors to play with. And to me, if a product is multi-use and customizable, that is an A++ in my book. Alright, so that's it for me today. If you have any more questions about the products that I used today, please leave them down in the comments box and let's have a conversation about it. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for being here, and I hope that you're having a good day wherever you are. Bye!